So now I want to just get on to a little bit about talking about Chapter 1, Modern Project Management. If you read the chapter, which I hopefully you've done, or you're going to read part of it after this, you'll see the importance that projects are playing in modern organizations. And so we want to make sure that we understand what a project is as well. So the textbook definition is it's a complex, non-routine, one-time effort limited by time, budget, resources, and performance specs designed to meet a customer need. Wow, that's a lot there. But really, what is it? You know, projects have a time component, clearly. They have a duration. And that sometimes also is fixed to budget because time is money, and so there is people and time, right? I guess if there's a lot of downtime, maybe that's not a direct correlation. And then the people we need, the equipment we need, the material we need are our resources. And ultimately, we're looking for doing something very specific for a customer need, whether it be internal or external. We wouldn't be doing projects if someone didn't need it. Looking at the characteristics of projects, you know, having a specific objective, and we talk about scope, we talk about them being specific and measurable objectives, along with being attainable and realistic as well. Projects have a defined lifespan, beginning and end. If they don't have an end, they're not a project, they're a problem. And usually we're not just doing them in a vacuum. A new development project like D&J Plastics, we have people in marketing, we have people in manufacturing, we have people in engineering, and so on down the line. So it requires usually people from across the organization. And it also requires something that we've not done before. At some point, when we look at projects, those are things that are unusual, not ordinary, not our regular work, if you will, regular operational work. But it doesn't have to meet the metric of, you know, some invention that, you know, first time ever being invented or whatever. So that office building that we're building down the street, we could build another one across town. It'll be different. There'll be some things that'll be the same. We should always learn from our previous projects, but something about that office building at that new site is clearly different. And so there's the never been done before metric isn't as heavy as like inventing something, if you will. And projects have a specific time, cost, and performance requirement. And we'll get into that a little bit more when we talk about the balancing between scope and time and budget. So a couple things, if you're talking about comparisons between routine work and projects, you know, things like Apple making the iPod, manufacturing an iPod, coming up with the next generation iPod or iPad or iPhone at this point, clearly is a project versus day in and day out operational work. So you can think of the left side of your screen as being the operational activities, and the right side of your screen being those things that we would normally classify as a project, and whether it's an event planning or it's a manufacturing project like D&J Plastics, they all fall into that project category. Projects are typically shown on a project life cycle like this. There's clearly a beginning phase, and that beginning phase should be your defining phase of your project. Although if you're looking at this graphic, planning and executing starts almost at day one as well. But things like goals and specifications and tasks and responsibilities all feed into that first phase. Then from that goes the planning phase. In the planning phase, things like schedules and budgets and resources are determined. We do a risk management plan. We staff up for the project. Of course, executing the project doesn't involve just the work of the project, but also involves writing status reports, having a change management system in place to allow for those good changes to come through in an orderly fashion, versus the big challenge of scope creep, that if you don't have a good risk management plan, you can allow scope changes that you might not want to see. Of course, there's an issue of, you know, what are you delivering to the client as well. And then writing out and reporting on things like forecasting budgets and forecasting schedules for the future. And then, of course, our closure. If we've got to end the project, we want to close it out. Depending on what the project is, if it's an event, the project closes the day we write all the rest of the bills after the event is over. Usually that's that night or maybe a day or two afterwards. And other things, if it's software, we might need to be releasing software and training customers and things like that. Number 4 and 5 are the toughest to do during the closure phase, evaluating how well the project went and sitting down with the project team and writing up a retrospective or a lessons learned part. We'll talk about that probably around week 8 or 9 or 10. No, it won't be week 10, probably week 8 or 9. Talking about wrapping things up and what's important, best practices for that as well. So the project lifecycle is important for several reasons. One, it's a basic concept in project management. And two, you're going to do a map of the project lifecycle to your sim project. That's your first simulation experiential exercise assignment. Which of the tasks in the simulation are in the defining phase? Not that many, but there's a few. Which of them would you consider to be planning phases? Which are part of the executing phase? And trust me, there's a lot of ones that you'll need are basically project work, if you will. And then, of course, there's some closing activities in that project, not too many. And so you'll be identifying task by item, which phase they belong into, and then what resources within the simulation do you need to do that work? And you do it by resource category. Do you need a project manager to do project management work? Probably, for the most part. Do you need a marketing person to do the business plan? Yes. Senior person? Maybe. So what's your plan? So that SEE 1-2 is really kind of a planning tool to get you into the simulation and to focus on the project lifecycle, the D&J Plastics project, and the resources required to do the work. I like this last slide because it really balances off the two areas that you need to do well to be a good project manager. The technical side, being involved with writing of proper scopes, meaning with those SMART objectives, work breakdown structures, scheduling, resource allocations, understanding your baseline budgets, and from that, tracking your project and writing status reports. All technical work, right? What about leading project teams and managing project teams and being able to solve the problems that come up on a day in and day out basis? Look at when you see the day in the life case that you're going to read for Rachel. Look at her and all the work she's got to do. So there's always that teamwork and negotiations and other things that come into play as well. All this we'll learn over the course of the semester. Okay, let's wrap things up here. Sim project related activities, again, focus on reading chapter 1 before this and then get into the simulation. There's a lot you won't know this week, which is fine, but I want you to learn as much as possible. So review the sim project videos I post in Moodle, review the other sim documentation, sign on and read the player's quick start manual or read it from Moodle, and start playing around with the simulation. You've got access for the next couple of weeks before you got to buy yours and submit that for getting into the team simulation. So start planning your resource assignments and managerial decisions as well. That will help you with SE 1-2 that's due on 9/20. I'll talk more about that probably during the recorded office hours. Also, you'll get some notification from me via the CATME survey. I want to get you into teams as soon as possible, and I can't do that until you fill out the survey. I think I'll give you a week to do that. And you should get the notification from OIT so that you can start downloading Microsoft Project. Project is very useful for this class. It's not essential if you somehow have some problems downloading it, but I'd like to help you all get through there. You Mac users, we might not need to have an offline discussion because it's really all based around a Windows PC. And so there are ways around that, but we probably should maybe talk by a phone or something. So again, start looking at SE 1-2, bring those questions and any other questions about the simulation to our open office hours on Tuesday the 13th, and get engaged with the class. Read chapter 1, A Day in the Life, and start thinking about how you're going to respond to my questions in this week's discussion forum. And finally, you're going to have lots of questions, lots of comments, lots of concerns. I've given you many ways to communicate. I think the two best ways to do that are through the discussion forums, either the student-to-student forum or the student-to-everyone forum, where you can ask questions about what's going on. Bring them next Tuesday night to our live office session, or send me an email, give me a call, whatever you need. I want to help you out. The first week's going to be tough, I'll admit it, but I think it will get better as time goes on. Have a nice day.